Good morning and welcome back. We are looking at the Bible. We're looking at 365 passages from Scripture which introduce us to the kind of literature the Bible really is, and trying to find out how it got to be written and why it is the way it is. At the moment we're looking at the statutes and laws of old Israel, and particularly at the moment laws relating to human behaviour towards God and worship. And today we're looking at God providing a reliable prophet after the lines of Moses himself for the people of Israel. We are looking at Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 14 to 22. I'll turn you around so you can see the words that I'm reading. Then Moses said this: I want you to be aware that in the country you are about to occupy, there are those who look for guidance to people who practice divination or look for omens. Yahweh your God doesn't allow you to do these things, but he will send you prophets like me. They will be from your own people. You must obey them. Remember that day when you met Yahweh at Mount Sinai. You were begging not to hear Yahweh speaking again. You didn't want to see his blazing presence anymore. You were scared to death. So Yahweh said to me that he understood what you were asking. It made sense. He would send a prophet like me, one of their own, and Yahweh would tell him what to say. Whenever he speaks in my name, I will punish those who refuse to obey. But if any prophet dares to speak anything in my name that I did not command, he must die for that, and so must any prophet speaking in the name of other gods. You are wondering how you can tell whether a prophet's message comes from Yahweh or not. If he says he is speaking for Yahweh, but what he says doesn't happen, it is not Yahweh's message. That prophet has spoken on his own say-so. Don't be scared of him. These words were most likely added to Deuteronomy at a time when the monarchy was failing or had already failed to lead the nation in safety. Kings had not acted in accordance with God's wishes, and as a result, first Israel, then Judah, had been defeated and depopulated. Looking back on these events, the scholars in exile in Babylon, editing these ancient laws, were very clear where the blame lay. The kings had not listened to good advisers and true prophets, but to self-serving advisers who were deluded by their own ideas and had not advised their kings well. Equally, the writers in exile were clear that there had been real but sadly ignored and sometimes persecuted prophets amongst them who had been written off at the time as prophets of doom. Somehow the writings of these prophets had been preserved by a secretary in one case, by a possible group of disciples in another, and we still have those texts today in the Old Testament. We will look at what they said and how they expressed themselves in a later portion of these studies. Their names are familiar to us. During the Assyrian ascendancy over Israel, we have the famous Amos and Hosea. And in Judah, as Babylon rose as a threat, we have the giants, Isaiah, which may be the work of 3 or more writers over nearly a century, all under the same name. And there was poor, unfortunate Jeremiah and forthright, hopeful Micah. The later editors of Deuteronomy probably added these words in order to strengthen the case for reconsidering the writings of prophets such as these. They even ask the obvious question: do you wonder how you can tell whether a prophet's message came from Yahweh or not? I'll tell you. If he says he is speaking for Yahweh, But what he says doesn't happen. It is not Yahweh's message. Isaiah, as we shall see, broke much new ground in human understanding of God's purposes and provided a solid framework for later Christian thinkers to understand and interpret the life and teachings of Jesus. Tomorrow, those same scholars back in Babylon are seen encouraging those returning from exile to ratify their covenant with God once again.